So the predicted COVID churn has happened, right? It feels like we're kind of entering into a new season in ministry, whether that be like church ministry, school ministry, faith-based like nonprofits and organizations. And with all of that, like with the churn, the market's changed completely.
If you haven't noticed,
in so many different ways.
We
feel it on both sides of like the client interaction, but also with the candidates. And so we thought it'd be helpful to just kind of have a short little conversation of what we've observed over the last year plus and kind of some takeaways that we think could be helpful on either side. And so I really wanted to start with the conversation about like clients, so churches and faith-based organizations. What do you think are some important things that they need to be keeping in mind as they're kind of keeping up with some trends through this process?
Yeah, so one thing we've gotten a lot of feedback from our consultants on is they would have a slate of candidates to take to a church before COVID, and that group would pretty much stay intact. And now post-COVID, pretty much routinely, there's always someone who falls off because they took a different job or they changed their mind. And so it seems a lot more fluid now. And so one way you as a client, as a church, as a school, whoever is hiring can kind of help with that now post-COVID is really have a good pace to what you're doing. Don't really take those 3, 4, 5 months to make that hire, right? Move quickly, not rushed, but have that purpose. And a big reason you want to have that purpose is because candidates are probably talking to other employers as well. And if they're exploring it with you, then they're probably exploring it in other places. And if you think they're a good candidate, well, then other places are going to think they're a good candidate as well. And so pace on the interview side is super important nowadays.
Yeah, because we're seeing candidates casting a really wide net. Maybe it's a specific type of role, or maybe it's a specific type of denomination or a region of the country, and they're casting a wide net and they're having a lot of kind of side conversations. And so when we get to the point of kind of that presentation or having further conversations, we always think it's really good to, even if you're like on the fence about a candidate, it never hurts to have that initial conversation, because that's either going to validate your initial concerns or you're going to see why they made it through the vetting process. And so I think it's always good to have that initial conversation out of the gate, and then that'll either kind of push the ball moving forward, or that'll free up that individual as they're wrestling with their call as well to allow them to find their next space.
Yeah. And then I think another thing for schools, churches, nonprofits to think of before the search even starts is cost of living now. We know inflation has gone up. There's a bunch of reports that last year the housing market across the country went up 19%. So both in terms of retention and attracting new talent, maybe a really good look at, hey, what is a salary for this role that maybe before COVID was competitive? Is it still competitive now, especially for the type of candidate that you want as a client, depending on the degree, life stage, cost of living of your area? All of those things are really good things to process as a team with the hiring manager and your leadership team to figure out, is this really a competitive salary for who we want to bring in and fill in that position? So on the candidate side in this market now, we all know how competitive it is. Everyone's looking for jobs and remote jobs and all this stuff. So how do you make yourself stand out as a candidate from all the other candidates that are applying out there?
Yeah, so it seemed like we stepped into a big season. Kind of rule of thumb was like a resume should be one page. Get everything on one page. And since the market has become increasingly more competitive because of the COVID churn, we've actually seen that the one page doesn't necessarily say everything that we need to know out of the gate. And so we've actually seen kind of a shift in trends with the resume specifically, where when it used to be the one page, it's actually moved closer towards that like 2 to 3 page, because we're wanting to see a little bit more. The employers wanting to see a little bit more to say, is it worth having follow-up conversations since it is such a competitive market? And so I've had friends in different industries go from that one page and not having any bites or any conversations to shifting now to that 2 to 3 page. And all of a sudden they're able to highlight themselves a little bit more, have a few more bullet points that are relevant to the position, say kind of here's the scope, scalability
Yeah.
of what I've done, where it's been, kind of all of those different things that say, hey, you should consider me a little bit more. And then another space that we've seen kind of come back into the conversation is that cover letter.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what do we say time and time again is it's not just, can you do the job? There are a lot of people out there that can do the job, but can you do the job here? Can you fit our culture? And so obviously as someone looking for a particular position, you're looking at the website, you're trying to kind of peek behind the veil as much as you can, but you're not like in the trenches of that organization.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a 10,000 foot view, but you're saying based on what I can see, here's what I think I can bring to your organization or to your church or to your faith-based space. And so I think those are two important areas, just as we've shifted over the last year and a half, that kind of the rule of thumb a couple years ago is not necessarily what it is today. And so kind of keeping up with those things to highlight yourself better. And I always think it's great too to be told no as opposed to like maybe so and no communication. I think the person hiring, the church, the faith-based organization would much rather hear no earlier than kind of this back and forth, not really hearing anything, constantly emailing back. I think that there's a level of transparency that's important within this COVID churn as well on both sides. Just so everyone's on the same page. And because we're not just talking about any role, we're talking about positions that are wrestling with a call. And we want to be sensitive to that on both sides.
Yeah, because there's that hard skills and soft skills piece, right? And so with your resume, like you're talking about, maybe show a little more of those hard skills and really try to, if you're a candidate, more than putting soft skills on your resumes, really try to put those measurables. What are those hard skills you've done, those budgets you've overseen, the growth and volunteers you've worked with, the money that you've raised in different aspects. And so really putting those hard skills, those numbers, those measurables on your resume to show your scope and scale. But then that cover letter to really show your personality, to show those soft skills, to show that calling. The calling can't really just come through in task on a resume.
That's right.
Right? There's always a soul behind a resume, and that's the challenge in recruiting or hiring, is trying to find that soul. And so that's where that cover letter for you can really give that soul to that resume, to the organization, and tell them, hey, here's why I have a pull to your mission and values and why it resonates with me, or how these skills translated, into like this level of emotional intelligence that I feel like has really been developed in this last role. And so that cover letter can really kind of give color to your resume and take something that's a PDF snapshot of you and actually make it kind of three-dimensional, personal, and give that thing a soul, which is important in this market.
Yeah, and I love the aspect of the cover letter and the resume. I've seen it kind of be muddled as well, where it's like a 7 or 8 page resume, and it's hard to kind of distinguish what are the important pieces. So I think it's important to kind of keep those two lanes separate, but there's obviously a space for both of those and what we're looking for. And so those are just kind of my initial thoughts on the client side, but also on the candidate side.
Yeah. And as always, we're here to help you guys and want to be a great resource for you. You continue to go to our website. We have information about how to write resumes, how to write cover letters, as well as if you're a client and you're wondering, well, how do we ask good questions, right? And figure out who's the right fit. We have those resources online as well. And actually, Brett just wrote a blog on our website about cover letters.
That's right.
And so go check that out, and hopefully we can be a resource for you guys in this market. And so thank you guys for checking in and listening.